We are back with another episode, and this time we're doing the counterpart,
Yeah,
certainty. Jordan, what's up, man?
my man. Time to yin to the yang, man, and realize how uncertain we are about certainty.
Yep, and we are doing this from my dining room this morning,
Yeah,
which is, kind of because of the weather, but sometimes it's good just to mix it up.
yeah, absolutely, man.
So, yeah, uncertainty. We dove into uncertainty last time, kind of the sexy part of this
Yeah,
delicate
the
balance.
exciting, yeah, adrenal pumping.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but this is something I feel like is just as necessary, even though it's not as sexy because, it's not based on adventure, figuring shit out,
yeah,
diving into the unknown. This is more of honing in on what's known,
yeah,
and that's such a key part of it too. But I thought we'd start today by asking ourselves, so like if we look at our world today and we say, like we've talked about, that it's drowning in dopamine,
hmm
what does that say about our current situation with certainty? So what do we take security in? What do we focus on? What are the voices we listen to? What do you think, dude?
yeah. It's easy way to start a conversation at 6 in the morning. Well, I think the dopamine aspect is a really good place to start with certainty or lack thereof in culture because it's clearly saying we're escaping to something because of the uncertainty in our lives. So there's you only need to look at like the statistics of addictions and death by certain addictions through drugs and in this the certainty you can have about how much we understand certainty
Mm,
is through the level in which human beings are currently killing themselves and escaping life because that's the thing is when you have uncertainty you have in your mind you have an immediate anxiety attack to
mm,
whatever degree that your uncertainty is affecting you at that point. So
mm.
we all deal with uncertainty in different escapism manners,
Yeah.
and um, there's something um, terrifying about not being in control. And I think I can only speak for myself, but I'm a fucking control freak.
Mm,
I want to know what I'm doing. I want to know the cause and effect of every decision. But that 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 strangle that's in my nature to have on my life, this certainty that I'm craving to have in every endeavor, every relationship, every conversation. I want to be certain that I get the result that I want.
mm,
That creates this suffocation with um, touching base with last week is we know there's most of life is out of our control, which is terrifying. So instead of being in a state of peace with letting go of all the unknowns, all the uncertainties, we we become fixated on how am I certain that I can cope with the uncertainty. So for me, I look at culture and I look at the culture in my own heart and my own mind, and
mm.
I've spent so many moments um, feeling so out of control and so uncertain about how things are going to pan out that I'm so compassionate and so empathetic to the dopamine seeker, to the addict of whatever fix you get, because um, there's a terrifying element of being human that is inescapable because we will forever until the day we die. All of the core issues that you and I've discussed these last few weeks, we can never fully be certain about them being fact.
Mm.
And I think that's where a lot of the turmoil stems from. I think that's where a lot of the dopamine drug seeking stems from, is because there's the fear of the unknown, man.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
you that alarm goes off, and the bulk of that day you're about to live is um, so fucking out of your control. But what's so interesting is by the time you're by the time you're 35 or whatever age it is, like statistically, whatever it's 90 some percent of your decisions are you're already subconsciously decided for your day,
Yeah.
and most of those subconscious decisions that are already decided are stemming from your grasp on how certain or uncertain you are with your control of that day.
Mm.
So it's a really interesting topic to dive into, because I think for me, how certainty and uncertainty has really panned out is looking at how out of control I am.
Mm.
So, but I mean, to flip the script, like how do you see, how certain are you that certainty needs to be um, needs to be understood on a deeper level in culture,
Mm.
and those several different lenses you looked at in starting the conversation.
Sure.
Like, what do you perceive certainty or the lack of certainty? How is that affecting culture? Not only just objectively, like do you see, but like within your own heart.
Sure.
Like, what is certainty doing inside of your heart every day?
Mm. It's a good question, dude. um, well, I think when we talk about certainty and uncertainty, there's a pursuit to try to figure out balance between these two things that are monumental in how we live our life. And with certainty, when I think of, it's such a broad word of certainty. When you're like, what am I certain about? What are the things that are my refuge that I take security in? Like, what is the voice? What is the convicting part of what drives me?
Mm-hmm.
Like that to me is what certainty is about. Certainty is about what is the thing that I know to be true, right? Like, even about myself, about what's out there. Like, a lot of times when you think of certainty, it comes back to family, or like those strong bonds, right? I think it was Tony Robbins, when he was talking about certainty, he talked about how it's basically this security thing, this security mechanism we have that's like why gang members are so willing to give their lives, or to just go and off somebody, because they are in this brotherhood. They're secure with where they're at. This is where their security comes from, right?
That's a
And
good point.
I think with the world that we're in now, we're just kind of flipped, right? We take certainty in areas we shouldn't take certainty, and then we are uncertain of areas that maybe we should be a little bit more certain in, but we just haven't dabbled in that area because it's a little scary. Like we talked about last week, uncertainty tends to bring with it fear because of you're diving into the unknown, compared to certainty of finding those things where I'm safe,
Mm-hmm.
right? Certainty is about safety. It's about that feeling that you have since you were a little kid and you were terrified of the dark. Like, you just want to find that certainty that you could go crawl in bed with your parents,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm safe here. Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God, right? But I think with certainty right now, it's something where we're certain in areas that I really think we need to open that lens of uncertainty, because I think Jordan Peterson talked about when he went through the process of trying to figure out who he was, and he labeled a lot of these parts of himself as deadwood, right? Like, he had so much confidence in these areas that he called deadwood that weren't actually part of the living, growing tree. If you think of a tree, they're just dead parts. That, like, he didn't realize how much of his identity was being caught up in these deadwood parts. So what he had to do was basically burn off the deadwood.
Yeah.
That's when uncertainty comes in, to help you burn off the deadwood. But the thing we have to ask ourselves is, are we so certain about something that's convicting and driving us and getting our security in an area that maybe is harming us more than we think? Because we want to be certain about these true things that we can bank on going forward, right? That like are actually life-giving and helpful, and like, honing in on the real you. And it's really hard to do, because we just tap into so many other things that we're like, oh, this gives me the security that I'm after right now. I'm settling here, right? Or you go back to that gang analogy, where it's like, if it is a gang, like, if that's where you find security, and you can't be secure with yourself, but you're secure in your group, your brotherhood, that's where you're going to stay,
Yeah.
right? So the goal is, how do you find true certainty? Like, where does that come from?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you ended on the gang note, because my ADHD was gonna forget, because you said it earlier. Um, I think something really important that needs to be dug into a little deeper is, because gangs have always fascinated me, because I've never felt like close with my biological family, and I don't talk to any of them currently, and I've always had and not in a victim way, but I've always had like a homesickness and like a homelessness in my soul that has caused a lot of uncertainty with like my identity, because I think a lot of people find their false sense of security and their certainty because a lot of their identity is anchored in that familial connection that they have, because that's regardless of whether or not they have a healthy family. Like people instinctually, I think their nature is to want to be ride or die for family members.
Sure.
Blindly, because there's a selfish element of security in that, because we're blood, we're supposed to like love each other, and if something chaotic happens in my life, you're gonna be there, right?
Yeah, I got you. It's the Vin Diesel family.
Yeah, exactly. And even though you know this incredibly muscular bald man isn't going to be there to save you, he's not on call. He's not going to be there. We like to tell ourselves that our family members are a bunch of like hybrided, cloned Vin Diesels. We put that in our mind, but reality shows that our family is made up of humans who are very flawed, and more often than not, they're probably going to look out for themselves when push comes to shove. There's very few Vin Diesels, in our family.
Yeah.
So to close the loop of the Vin Diesel thing, what is it? Because I've thought a lot about gangs. Because not that I'm gonna join one, and if I was in one, I wouldn't tell you. So
I was thinking we start our own.
We did. When someone, because it's fascinating to me. I watched a documentary about. There was one in New York. There was a part of the initiation to get into this gang in New York. These guys would beat the shit out of each other, like literally. All the gang members would show up at some park, and basically it's like, if you can like take a beating, like, and show your manhood in like a very barbaric way, then like you're okay to be in our gang, because it shows us that you have some level of thick-skinnedness. Yeah. But my point being, not to get off on a long-winded tangent, is what's so fascinating to me about gangs is the blindness of their loyalty to the gang is, I will literally go pull a trigger on someone I don't know and fucking murder them, whether it's fill in the blank for whatever commodity it is, whether this guy looked at me the wrong way at some party I went to. I mean, it's so for such like simple, pithy, weak things. You know what I mean? Yeah. But there's something so insanely powerful and not that I'm condoning murder, but there's something so beautiful about the level of commitment to a family unit. Like, I'm gonna fucking go kill someone because I feel like it matters to my family. Yeah. And to me, it's like, objectively, you look at that and you're like, it's so disgusting and immature and like childlike. And like, if this is what happens when kids play violent video games, but it's like, no, they figured out something. Whoever's at the top of the gang figured out something, how to mind fuck these young guys and young ladies into believing that they're a part of something bigger, and that they are certain that if they're willing to kill someone else at a moment's notice, then that they will be loved and protected. Yeah. So my question is, like, what is being accomplished for satiating the certainty appetite in that gang member that is killing someone, and how does that tap into the bigger discussion we're having about certainty?
Yeah, dude, I think
because when you get down, when it gets down to any topic, if it comes down to life and death, and the belief you have in any topic is igniting your decision to kill someone, that psychology, that is fascinating to me. Yeah, you believe in something to death. Yeah, that's why Jesus is fascinating to me. It's like, he's like, I so believe in my mission and my vision of what truth is, and teaching about love, that I'm willing to be murdered in the most horrific way. Sure. That's why Jesus is so fascinating. So, your thoughts?
Well, I think that when you look at what's happening, right, when you think of somebody that's willing to sacrifice themselves or be in that deep to that level of loyalty, it's exactly what we're talking about with the certainty topic. They're so certain that where they're at is worth it. It's the only place I'm going to find peace. It's security incarnate, right? Because you've been accepted. And maybe that acceptance that you have from a group, you're unwilling to do yourself at a deep level where you're so insecure with who you are that you know now that other people accept you at that level where they're willing to die for you, right? Or you're in it and you're willing to give yourself that way, right? Because you're in it, you're blood brothers, right?
Yeah.
But you think of like what happens when people actually do come out of gangs, and I've just seen a few like documentaries and movies and stuff, but like what happens when people can actually come out of that spell is a little bit of what we talked about last week. It's when you're in Scientology and you're so far gone that all of a sudden that uncertainty piece creeps up and you're like, what am I doing?
Dude.
Like why am I so willing to do this? Like whatever sparked it, like let's say something horrible happened that caused you to have that moment of uncertainty where you're like, oh, maybe this isn't as good as I thought it was. Maybe it's not as certain as I was hoping. That's what provokes that inner, oh man, I need to figure this shit out.
Yeah.
Right? Because the scary part with this is it takes you to belief and how powerful that is, because that's where this loyalty comes from. You're willing to go that far because you believe in what you're doing that much. That's what happens with wars. That's what happens where, people go jihad and stuff like that. It's people believe so wholeheartedly in what they're doing that they're willing to do things that blow your mind.
Yeah.
To a dude that can wear a exploding vest, walk into a room of people and just hit the button. I mean, it's unfathomable from our place right now, but it is, but it isn't, because you can imagine being such a headspace where like you think what you are doing is so much bigger than you that you're willing to go to these extreme lengths. And that's the part where this certainty creeps in. That's worse, like not to keep saying what we talked about last week, but it goes back to like what Dawkins is talking about with religion, right? Because he is saying that, like, listen, if there is these religious faiths out there that bring you to this level of certainty, we need to get rid of them because they're not good for you, man. They're deluding your mind, because what's happening is whether you're in a gang or you're in a religious cult or you're in some, you're believing in some war, doing some things based on whatever reason that isn't actually true or real. Like, you're not able to figure that out for yourself anymore.
Yeah.
You're completely dependent upon something out of your control waking you up, because you were so far delusional. Yeah. And that's the thing that I think that we need to understand with certainty, is that we all have that capability. It may not be the person wearing that vest, but it'll be the person being so loyal for some reason that will be, and that's why money is this really great example of certainty, because that's what it brings you. If you were blessed, or if you were, cursed to have enough money, like what it does is like give you this sense of security. You're just like, man, this is great. I don't have to worry about this stuff anymore. Like, I can take my security in this pile of cash that I got that it fills all my needs. But in reality, it's toxic and horrible for you, and you wonder why. Because it's doing the same thing, man. You're realizing that, okay, maybe what I'm taking so much certainty in is really horrible for me. And it's that dead wood piece that you need to like burn off and figure out. So I mean, that's a long-winded answer
not at all
what you asked, but I think it ties into like why we need to look at these things and what we're certain in, and it goes back to the voices that we're listening to in our heads. Right? And we have to look at those voices and ask ourselves, what are the convictions of our life? What are these things that we're pursuing to the nth degree? Whether it's and ask yourself why. It's the Simon Sinek thing you said last week. Why is it like that?
And that's ultimately what you have to find. What you have to find for yourself is the why answers to these questions that we've brought up in the past weeks. And for this one specifically, what's interesting is with every topic we've had, there's two spectrums of human beings that we categorize, and the extremes of those polar ends, you're just talking about money, we typically like put people in a hierarchy, and there's ones that have an abundance of financial means, and then there's the lower end that are leeching off intentionally of every handout that you can get and actively doing nothing with their lives and being a victim of everything. So, I think a lot of people would say there's a lot of a lot of those like very right-wing Republican rich people would look at like all the gang members of like, you're just not willing to get a job, and blah blah blah. But it's like they're both the exact fucking same. They're both blindly living in their bubbles of false sense of security, whether it's in a gang or whether it's in the top 1%. You're both doing the exact same fucking thing, and it's both giving you that exact same bankrupt reality of like, I'm doing the right thing, right? With the gang member being like, I'll go fucking kill whoever you want me to kill. Then you have the Fortune 500 CEO, like facilitating and actively making business decisions that are making kids work in slavery, in a third world country. It's like, who's the fuck up there? Like my argument is that rich guy, because in terms of like overall encompassing damage, like the rich guy's ruining a lot more fucking lives because of his ego. But I'm only bringing that up to say the gang member is equally blind to having his anchor be inside that blindness of that family commitment. And I was watching one of my favorite podcasts, London Real. He had a guest on. It doesn't matter who it is, but a gentleman is, I think he's a billionaire. I think he is. And he is, I don't know for how many years, but pretty deeply rooted in Scientology with like, that's his backdrop. And I never knew that until I watched this, because I've seen his shit on YouTube, like super intense real estate mogul dude. And he's never open in a very Tom Cruise way, like open about it. But he was talking about Scientology, and he, in a very non-committal way, he was saying, because of this path of spirituality, it saved my life, it changed my life, it gave me structure, and blah, 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 blah. And for all intents and purposes, and I don't know if he's doing this to like not be categorized as a Scientologist, but you can't really go halvesies into Scientology. It's one thing you learn pretty quick, that it's not I do it kind of, I'm a partial Sunday Christian. No, it's like, you're a Scientologist, like it's all in, or there's no reverse. But he was saying that I'm not really into that side of the Scientology, like the crazy part. He's like, I'm in it for that structure it gives me. So my whole point is, you can turn a blind eye to the fucking craziness of a spiritual path that Scientology is. No offense intended, but whatever. But your ego can protect you from realizing like, you're in this, you're anchored in this, because it's giving you that that false sense of security, that I'm certain that this is the path that will give me structure and success in my day-to-day life. But it's that I'm willing to kill someone in a gang, and I'm willing to be a part of a crazy-ass religion because it's giving me this false sense of security that so my argument to that guy is, I'm like, if it's just these like principles and steps of like life habits, like you can go do that on your own. Like, why do you got to be part of Scientology? It's so interesting to me what the mind, like how we deceive ourselves into being part of that Scientology gang. It's like, bro, like, do you know what they're doing? Like, obviously you can't fluffily say like, it's just like a really good support network. It's like, if you want some, like, get a life coach. Like, you don't need to be a part of this thing. So it's just interesting to see that kind of like delusional like mentality, to where if like a gang member like killed someone, was being interrogated by a cop and being like, kid, like, you're 13 years old, you killed it. Like, what the fuck? Do you think this gang cares about you? These guys are using you to like sell their product or whatever it is. And that little kid's like, well, but those are my brothers and my sisters. And there's kind of that like blind commitment, because my whole point is, I saw that same kind of blind commitment in that gentleman, billionaire guy. He's just kind of like, he doesn't really care that he's part of the Scientology gang, because he's getting something satiated in his soul. And I think there's a part of knowing that he knows part of his significance and his identity is, it's anchored in Scientology. Therefore, he's certain that his life will facilitate value and meaning. So it's it's just interesting the polar ends of like human beings. One being like the one who's never had an opportunity ends up in a gang,
Mm-hmm.
and then the one who has every means to fucking everything. He has a fucking jet. He can fly anywhere in the world today, literally.
Yeah.
Yet he feels the need to be a part of this crazy ass family.
Yeah.
Like, what is at the core of that willingness to be blind? Like, what is it that as human beings, like, no matter how much fucking money you have, what is it that we want to be most certain about
Mm.
that gets us in those scenarios?
Mm. Yeah, dude. Man, when you look at it and when you look at it like that, and you're like, man, when you can see people, I guess. I think when you're talking of like this person that would find like a Scientology church and then like be like, all right, I'll check it out. Like, what's going on there, right? Because there's this inner seeking of like trying to find something, that missing thing,
Yeah.
you know, or the person who gets into a gang and like sees like, wow, look at these other people that have like felt like they don't have a family. They're people who like got their back, right? I mean, that's what it is, you know, and it's that missing thing that I don't have.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of asking, is that missing thing really the thing that's in front of you right now, or maybe is it something that you have to figure out in here?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where we've been talking about with some of the, you know, the topics we've had with, you know, trying to figure out what addiction's about, and like really going back to the center of like love and what love is, where a lot of times when we get down these roads of finding something that we are certain in, that we're willing to give our lives for, you know, dedicate our whole lives for, whatever, we have to be so rooted in knowing who we are and like having that place where we've really sought it out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't, then you're really kind of at the mercy of whatever has been put in your life,
Yeah.
whether it's the church or a gang or anything else, or, you know, it's something that'll give you that temporary thing you're after, but you'll never find that real thing. It's the synthetic version, and it doesn't even matter of what you're in, because it's based on how you find it. Because you can use anything. The thing we're good at is taking something
Mm-hmm.
and using it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we do great.
Yeah.
You know, we'll use our thing as a drug. You know, we'll take something that can be pure and life-giving and twist it, right? Whether it's a relationship or, you know, whatever. Like, it could be so many different things that I think that we need to know that about ourselves, that unless we're willing to take the red pill,
Yeah.
everything else is going to be the blue pill.
Mm-hmm.
It's only after you take the red pill
Mm-hmm.
that you can actually find things that will be helpful, because you're in this state of a solid you, a well sought out you. Because if it's not, then you're just going to find something trying to fill that void.
Yeah.
And that void is there, and we just don't want to acknowledge it, because we find things that are so good at making us forget that it's there. Like, oh man, this gang thing, like, it gives me a purpose, man. It gives me the significance. It gives me the certainty. You know, it fills this need that I have.
Yeah.
And I think that when we look at what certainty is, and we look at, you know, this conversation, it's a matter of asking yourself, like, what is that thing that I'm listening to in my head and I'm really after? Like, what is this need I'm trying to fill? Because we get really good at finding something and telling ourselves, this is it. This is it.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's a faith that you know, that you see is helpful for you, it's helpful for other people. I mean, that's what I loved about when I was in the church and really involved with stuff, is that it's tangible. You know, you feel like you're helping people. It feels like it's helping you. It's you see the goodness that you see so clearly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you think you see so clearly.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a matter of looking at it and asking yourself, so what, and it goes back to, why do I believe this is so true? And that's where this is where that dance of certainty and uncertainty happens.
Yeah.
You know, because to really be certain about something and about yourself, and to really know that voice or that need that you're feeling is really being met, only takes that well pursued journey. Because anything else will just, you'll just use it to fill. You know what I mean? And I don't feel like it'll never be done by trying to find that thing outside of you and bring it inside.
Yeah.
It's only when it's coming out of you and you're expressing it in other ways. It's from the inside out.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I know. You're essentially saying you can be certain that your path of certainty is certainly on the right path if it's coming from within and the direction is creating energy outwards.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even open to discussion or argument that if you're trying to find certainty, if you're trying to like throw out your anchor in an external source of a synthetic family in a gang or 1%, whatever financial pursuit, the external anchor that you're trying to throw overboard, like you're going to sink when the turmoil and the chaos and the waves of life start coming at you. If your anchor is in external sources, you can absolutely depend on their independability. Like it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So you're saying in order to actually fucking set sail in life, and you don't have to be a fucking like huge ass cruise liner. Like you can be a little fucking paddle boat.
Sure.
You can be an inner tube, but as long as your anchor is coming in, it's intrinsically who you are and your identity, and it's not externally anchored in very conditional, very fucking conditional relationships or environments.
Yeah.
Like the only way to stay afloat is to fucking throw that anchor inside of yourself and know that you know what you believe is certain is a part of who you are.
Yeah.
And it's not dictated by external circumstances, because if your certainty is within, you're not going to sink.
Yeah.
Because if it's truly anchored within and it has legitimacy to it, then your compass for navigating that storm is never going to waver. That magnetism to the polar end of that compass is saying your certainty is anchored in truth. You know that you know what is true. Mm-hmm. Therefore, this fucking inner tube isn't going to sink. And that's why you see the ego and the arrogance of the Titanic is sinking on its first maiden voyage. You know, it's because there's this pompous arrogance of the 1% being on this huge ass boat, being like, look at our money. We don't need to fucking pay attention to the realities of geological issues of submarine things. But that's the thing, is like, you can be the most humble, simplest man and never fucking sink, because and that's what Frankl talks about, is like, you can be in Auschwitz, but if you're certain you've made the decision that you're gonna fucking wake up and keep doing whatever these fucked up Germans ask of you, because you have hope that this is gonna end at some point, and those gates are gonna open, and the good dudes are gonna win, and they're gonna let you out. If you're certain that that's gonna happen someday, it allows you to keep fucking doing these horrific things every day to survive. So it's my question to you is, what do you think for yourself you're desiring to be most certain about? Like what realigns your compass? How do you calibrate it?
Sure.
In all of the ways you've tried to calibrate it, like, what is it that you think you're wanting to be so fucking certain about in life every day? Like, it doesn't have to be some, like, you and I have had the very focused intention of creating these conversations.
Yeah.
I'm saying outside of a goal that is very tangibly doable, like you and I we plan for these conversations to a degree, and we show up and we do them. I'm saying for the average Joe, every fucking day out in the world, having a lot of meaningless moments, like, what is it that needs to be focused on for her or him, certain that their life doesn't have an anchor in something meaningful? What do you think it is that they're not just lacking, but for you personally, what is it that you want to be most certain about every day?
I feel like it's to put it this way, I think that
it's a brutal question.
Yeah, but I'm certain that I don't know, and in certainty that, like, it's certain that I don't know, that makes me know, and it's a play on, but it's the way of Like when you study Socrates and you understand like the reason people caused he was such this deemed wisest person of the time is because he knew that he didn't know,
Yeah.
right? But I mean that there's a part of like this open pursuit of like, listen, man, I know how limited I am. I know that there is going to be this much that I am going to know about the whole scheme of things.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm this little drop of water in this ocean, right? And you just think of how much are you going to be able to know? You're not going to be able to know a lot. There's little things that you'll feel like you'll know, like, ooh, I've really felt love today, so I know that that's there, you know. But it's almost like your basis is based on this idea of your limitation, and in doing that, it helps free you because instead of the opposite of like I know that's what we're talking about. I know this gang is it. I know this church is it. I know. When you get like that, that's when you're your worst, your weakest. That's when the worst shit comes out of us.
100%.
Because it's only when you're free enough to be like this, man. I don't know. Like I'm gonna walk around life like this loosely, right? Because to ask what that compass is doing, it's constant recalibration, constantly recalibration. It's knowing that every day I got to recalibrate my compass. That's it. And it's a really there's so many days you just want to get that thing dialed and like, okay, we're set. I never have to tinker with that thing again.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that's not life. What life is constant recalibration. And it's only when we accept that, after we can look at our lives and see how everything is screaming at us like, this is life. You will never know. Like, even when you get an answer, like I was watching that Netflix special called A Strange Rock with, it's a National Geographic where they're looking at the Earth from astronauts' perspectives and just saying, this is one crazy ass place we live. It's really good. They were talking about air and how this thing we take for granted
Oh yeah.
all the time, what it takes for that. Like, it's amazing when you see an hour special and you're just like, dude, it's gonna be hard for me to take for granted breathing again, you know? But like, it's knowing that like you see these brilliant people, these astronauts, where like we get answers, right? And like we figure out how we have air, but it only leads to more questions because we're trying. And that's the point. Yeah. Everything in life is screaming at you of like, you're not gonna have it figured out. You really want to because you want to be secure in whatever it is. But there is another way to be secure. It's accepting that you're not gonna know. Mm-hmm. And we don't want to do that. We're like little kids, just want like we just want things to work and be safe and secure, and it's hard for us to like submit. Mm-hmm. And that's what I feel like the only way to really have that true sense of certainty comes when you accept how uncertain our life is. And it's such a weird dynamic, but it is that the only way we can be free. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, our life is circumstantial. We will plug into what's in front of us. Mm-hmm. That our little judge in our head is saying like, "Ooh yeah, get in that gang. Ooh yeah, get in that church." Mm-hmm. You know, and who wants to live life like that, man? I feel like it when we can just tap into this place of being like, you know what? It's okay that you don't know. Yeah. It's okay that you're not going to have it figured out. There's certain things that will be extremely convicting. Like, we obviously have some that sit here and talk about this kind of thing right now that we're convicted that what we're talking about needs to be talked about. Yeah. We're not doing it to make money. We're not sitting here trying to like, look at how great I am. No. I mean, people who've watched this, it's a raw thing to have people dissect what we're doing. Yeah. But it's a matter of like knowing that like I'm talking about this stuff not based on me knowing and trying to tell other people, but me trying to tell people that it's okay to not know. Yeah. It's okay to be pursuing and seeking and like not have it figured out. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's so to go back to it. Yeah, I think that life is constant recalibration every day. And there's days where your compass may not necessarily need to be completely calibrated, maybe just a minor tweak, but there's days you're like, dude, I gotta like take this thing back down because like everything seems wrong. Yeah. Yeah. And it's knowing that and being okay with it. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. I think it's always interesting hearing someone else talk about the thoughts that you have all the time with being certain that you're uncertain. And it's so hard to compute in your mind that the only way you know you're on the right path is knowing that you don't know. And it's it's such a mind fuck.
That's
And
it. I
but
know.
what's so interesting is, not to get nerdy, because I don't have the capacity to get nerdy, but there's something in nature. You're talking about the National Geographic document. There's something in nature and the perfect geometry of the universe and how everything's held together, whether it's our oxygen being ignited from the combustion of different molecules happening in the perfect atmosphere that we have. There's so much perfection. And what's crazy to me is there's an aspect. I'm not going to say all the stupid big words, but in the way they've studied like life and energy in the universe, like there's this vacuum aspect. There's an inverting of energy in space, and it returns, and it's this cyclical, like, recycling thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this infinite peace you have when you go within yourself and you let go of the control. You actually find, in my life, that geometry of the freedom and the peace that I have found. Like Jesus talks about, like when you have the capacity to really tap it. And this is obviously my translation of a lot of crazy ass old scripture, but I think a lot of what he talks about is when you finally have the capacity to like be like a child and look through that lens, that's where you find freedom. And when I think a child, if they're not tainted by horrific, circumstances that a lot of children are, but in theory, if you're a child and you have a somewhat loving environment facilitated for you, you don't give a fuck about knowing anything about anything, and you have peace.
Yeah, that's it. But that's it. Yeah.
And that's, I feel like, as a grown ass man, and you're a grown ass man, and I think we're trying to internally recreate that peace of not even needing to be certain about anything. And for myself, I when I finally started letting go of needing to calibrate my compass a specific direction, and to such a brutal, suffocating degree, like the return you get on your investment of, this is the path I'm going, I'm certain this is the only one that will make sense for my life, and no matter what, like there's such a brutal suffocation that so many people experience every day, like by saying that this relationship or this career path, like I'm certain that this thing needs to continue having life.
Mm-hmm.
You kill yourself, metaphorically and sometimes literally,
Yeah.
And I've been looking at the art behind you, and I think there's an aspect of certainty that is so. And again, I'm not romanticizing something really fucked up and heavy,
Yeah.
but there's something so powerful about the certainty someone has about taking their own life. It's so fucking terrifying, but it's I don't think there's a more powerful display of someone embodying certainty about something. Talking about the gang member being willing to kill someone else because they're certain that their security comes from that gang and that family aspect. But a soul that has become so bankrupt that they say, I'm certain that another day here is not worth existing in, and I'm certain that the only way out of that is to take my life. And that level of self-hatred, it's one of the most misunderstood topics, and people say it's like the most selfish thing to do. But what's ironic is the people who think it's the most selfish thing are the most selfish people, because they're looking at someone who kills themselves as, it's selfish because it makes me sad. And it's fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's the thing that's so interesting, is someone that's certain that their life has no more meaning by being plugged into this reality. There's something very profound there to understand. That's kind of what I was asking you, is like, for you specifically, what are you still holding on to that's keeping you alive? Not to say you're suicidal, I'm saying, but like there's something you have inside of you that makes you want to keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing you need to unlock, and verbally unlock is what is it that we need to be pressing into and being certain that we're uncertain about. Like, what is that arena of thought?
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and that it leads into the Tony Robbins. You sent me a quote he had that's really powerful. He says, certainty is like a muscle. If we don't feel certain inside about what we want or what we need to do to get there, then we give up before we even begin. And it's a big deal. Certainty is the key to unlocking what's holding us back. Certainty creates confidence, absolute certainty to tap your full potential, to take massive action, get massive results, and be reinforced by stronger beliefs. So I love the aspect of him symbolizing certainty as a muscle.
Yep.
But that's such a hopeful statement, because it says it's something that can be grown.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that can be flexed. So for you, how does one flex this metaphysical muscle of certainty? And how do you build on that? Because that's what the gang member is seeking. That's what the Fortune 500 billionaire is seeking, is flexing a muscle in a specific area, neither of which I think are the right areas of certainty.
Sure.
So what's the muscle Tony Robbins is talking about, and how are you flexing it?
Well, I think one, I think it's a great thing, but it's also a scary thing, because if it's this muscle you can flex and build, I think that it's kind of like what we're talking about. Like, you can have certainty in things that are really harmful. That's what we were kind of talking about.
Yeah.
So I do think there's that side of it, but I do think what it boils down to is your focus. What is that's in your spotlight? What is that target, right? Because a lot of people have that target on, like, security or whatever, like that thing you're trying to hit, where it's like success or beauty or intelligence or whatever that target is. Because whatever it is, if it's God or whatever way you see it, you know what I mean? Like, if you're that person with the vest that's going and getting ready to detonate, right? Your focus is on doing God's work. Right? Yeah. But that's what's bringing you that certainty. You're just like, you're studying the book in front of you. You believe this is the way to do God's work, and that's what you're doing. So it has everything to do with what our focus is on. And I think the only way to really, like, take that back and work on building that muscle in a way that's pure and real is to put the target here. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because we want to put it on something else. And I think that the most misinterpreted way of doing it is God. Mm-hmm. Because so many harmful things are done by trying to please God. Yeah, whether you're picketing with the sign saying, God hates fags, or you're at an abortion clinic doing the same thing, or whatever it is. You're doing it because, one, you feel like it's God's work in a way, right? I mean, that's why you're out there willing to put yourself in this harmful, really difficult situation. And I've seen those dudes. I remember going into a football game and seeing those guys, like, with the signs, just like,
so crazy.
But there's no love in their eyes.
None.
They don't care. They're like, they're not caring about this. It's more of like, I'm doing God's work here, regardless of what people think. But I think that's the key part, is like, with God is where we easily misstep, because it doesn't really compute in people's minds of, like, how do I know that I'm seeing God clearly? Like, how do I know this God that I'm willing to go to war right now for is really what I think he is, right? Because it's based on my interpretation of it. So I think the only real focus, or like the target that you can really have, is like that idea, one, of like not really knowing, but like trying to figure out, like, I am this person trying to figure out life to the best of my ability. Like, my goal in life is like, how do I learn how to be Ryan to Ryan's full capability? Like, how do I all I know right now is I'm this person who's thinking and talking to you, right? I have had all these insecurities and things to get over, right? And I've seen where, like, the real things in life matter, with like connection and love, and like that speaks truth to me. So a matter of like really diving in and figuring out is like, how do I figure out like to live this life for however long it is to the best way I can? And it's constantly saying, man, I really don't know,
Yeah.
you know? And then it's going back to being like, okay, so how do I show people like, and like give and like do these things that are like, to me, where it's like, I see truth in it.
Yeah.
I see what's really matters, but like, it's hard because it's so easily distorted, you know? Because when I was in seminary and trying to teach God's work, like, I felt like I was doing that same thing, right? But it was almost in a way where I didn't realize that I was doing it based on fear, or I was wanting that security in what I was after.
Mm-hmm.
So the hard part is how do you do that purely? That's where it comes down to, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's where it takes kind of detaching from so many things that you you think are so important, and going back to this place of being like, man, I don't really know what's really important, but I feel like this. And I feel like what it comes down to is what a true sense of faith is, right? Because faith is just not really knowing, but having hope in something that you feel is true.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's the key point, is how do we become people of faith, not people of delusion? Because what's happened is that that word faith has been hijacked by delusion. That
Mm-hmm.
like delusional people are called faithful people.
That's a great point.
And I think that a big part of our life, and the only way we can really tap into that, is becoming the people of faith. And it's saying like, I don't know, but I have hope, right?
Yeah.
And that's a key point for me. It's like, I don't know, but one thing I feel like I know is I love spending time with my family. I love spending time with my kids. I love getting to talk stuff like this with you,
Yeah.
and like sharing bigger things. And it's just pointing me to the fact that like there's something bigger going on.
Yeah.
And that's what I can rest in, is
Yeah.
this idea, if it's bigger than me, I don't know, and it's okay.
Yeah.
But it's hard to do because we're constantly wanting to latch. We're like that cat that's fallen off the couch and like just clings onto the side. That's what we're doing constantly to whatever's in front of us.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's our problem, is realizing that it's okay just to let
Yeah.
go. We don't have to cling.
Yeah. Dude, you never cease to amaze me with how bring things full circle, because I think you um, unknowingly or very knowingly just explained it perfectly, because saying faith has been hijacked by religious, spiritual people, whatever fucking avenue of spirituality that they've
Mm-hmm.
pursued. It exposes the ultimate lie and the ultimate crippling reality of being a spiritual person on a spiritual path. Because if you have faith in a thing, the definition of faith is having hope that something that you
No.
can't prove is
Yeah.
real,
Yeah.
but there's enough substantive soul metaphysical proof that I'm gonna tread towards that thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna defend it. I'm not gonna fight for the ground that I have
Yeah.
my faith rooted in, because fighting and defensive energy scream insecurity about
Yeah.
the faith that you say you have.
Yeah.
And if you are a faithful person in anything, you're in a state of openness. You're in a state of acceptance. You're in a state of desiring to build upon the faith of the fact that you know you can't prove the thing, but you're so honored and excited to be in a headspace of having a path, a calibration to your compass. And what's so interesting is people that say they have faith or are pursuing a spiritual path, showing up to a spiritual place, a synagogue, a mosque, whatever. I'm not saying those things are intrinsically bad. I'm like, it's great that there's avenues to develop faith, but when it gets to the point of your life is so blindly committed to a thing that is a reality after death, which you can't fucking prove, it's no wonder that you see fucking crazy bananas spiritual stuff happening all the
Yeah.
time, or crazy actions taken in the name of faith. People standing at a game in a picket line saying, because of your sexual orientation, you're going to burn in eternity. When it's like,
It's horrible.
I didn't pick which gender I liked.
Yeah.
I came out of a womb. Some dude liked this chick. They did some weird shit, and I came out of that scenario. it wasn't a good scenario, but I'm glad it happened. And I grew up and I'm like, dude, that female with those reproductive things is awesome. And I'm very magnetized towards her.
Yeah.
I don't see how it's so crazy to think that the infinite crazy complexities of who I am, like that switch could have been turned the other direction and been like, I could have been like, dude, I'm into dudes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like it doesn't, it's not a terrifying thing for me to think that, and I've, being a chef in my past career path, like I was around gay guys all the time and lesbians, and they're human beings who have different preferences than I do.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't make them any less human. Like, it's so fucking crazy that we think because of this spiritual text that these people are less human. They're going to go to some place that I don't know after they die, and I'm going to spend my whole life trying to make them feel like shit about their path.
Mm-hmm.
It's so bananas. But my whole point is you nailed it on the head, is when certainty becomes fact,
Mm-hmm.
and you basically kill your soul, because you cap out in your mind and say, there is no truth beyond the truth that I know. But there's nothing more certain to create chaos in your life than being certain about something to death.
Yeah, it's true. But like, think of what that says about yourself. Like, it just, if you can have that level of certainty that you've chosen the right thing, good Lord. I mean, how much does that say about yourself? I mean, how fortunate are you? Good Lord, you figured it out. Great. Wow. Look at you. You were born in the right family. You have the right sexual orientation. Yeah. Oh my gosh, you got in the right faith. Wow.
What a
lucky.
Awesome coincidence.
Man, this is great. Oh man, I'm so glad that like things worked out for me. I mean, but in reality, it's just like, come on, man. Really? Like, are we so easily able just to discount everybody else? Like, they're
even be willing to have a conversation about it. Not to interrupt, but
yeah, no, I mean I just think if we can look at it like and just like step back and be like, you really think you have it so figured out? Like, I mean, come on. Life's easy then. Well, yeah, you were just ding, you hit the jackpot right off the bat, man. Congratulations.
Yeah.
So I think no, it's just like, come on, like realize what you're really doing, you know? Realize what's really going on. Yeah. And it's just so hard to do because when it boils down to it, like it's just like we are so scared. We want to cling. We're constant just reaching for that thing. Yeah. And it's just we have to realize that it is okay. It's okay to like that like it's okay for your need to cling. It's instinctual. It's a part of who we are. But like as you fully realize and you look at it, you just have to realize, man, I don't have to be like that.
Yeah.
If I want to be free and like really help and like do our work, like because that's what I think this boils down to, man. It's like looking at that War of Art book you gave me.
Game changer.
Yeah, but it's just like it's a matter of trying to figure out who you are enough to be okay expressing yourself
uncertainly.
Yeah, but just doing it freely. And like it's so hard because like we want to make whatever life path we're on so certain. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's not like that, man. Like try to just figure out you and just learn to own this person that you are right now in a way where like you can do your work. Mm-hmm. Because what will prevent you from that is being so certain of things that aren't meant to be taken so certainly, whether it's faith or whatever thing you're clinging to. Yeah. Because that's it. It's just learning that, like, man, it's okay not to cling. And you're only ever going to find that true purpose to do your work when you can uncling, when you can let go and just be like, man, you know, it's okay not knowing. Yeah. But now that I'm unknowingly here, like I can actually be free enough to be me in whatever that looks like. Because that's where we get the people that change things. Yeah. That's where we get the Gandhis, the Martin Luther Kings. Yeah. That's where we get those people because they've done that. Yeah. But when you can look at it and you understand why people don't do that and why the 99% are so just onto whatever it is.
It's a low ball. Yeah, I remember.
But you realize that it's it's terrifying
Yeah.
when on paper. But then when you get to a place where you can actually just let go, you are okay. You realize it's not that bad. It's not that scary.
Yeah.
But I think it just boils down to, man, like just realizing like our quest for certainty is not going to be what we think it is. It's not going to be so easy. It's going to be something that is a journey, and
Yeah.
it goes into the balance of certainty and uncertainty.
Yeah.
You can't get to the certain place without going through the uncertain place,
Yeah.
and vice versa.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that we just have to be okay with, because most of us just don't want it.
Yeah.
We just want to be like, okay, we're in the right spot, figured it out.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep on the certainty train, right?
Yeah.
And just screw that uncertainty stuff. And
Yeah.
it's like, no, you can't have one without the other.
Yeah. Well, I think, one of the last thoughts I want to share before you tell me to shut the fuck up. I think the way you said it, the quest for certainty, the quest to become fully who you could become as Ryan, like that's the quest we're on every day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we're so magnetized towards hero stories and
exactly.
superheroes. Is we idolize the idea of a being fully manifesting his or her potential, but it's conveniently don't try, because we say, well, they tripped and fell in a pool of nuclear goo, and that's why they can do what they do. But it's funny that we create these figures that have supernatural powers from supernatural circumstances, because it secretly allows us to never try, because it's like we idolize these heroes because it allows us to continue being a victim. But that's why Batman's a fucking gangster. It's because he's a real dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he takes the weight of the craziness, metaphorically, and all the culture that he's in on his shoulders, and he recognizes that in order to be effective to the extent in which he wants, like he has to wear a mask. And I think there's a lot of symbolism there of there's still a part of him that doesn't fully want to own his identity and fully own his power, and recognize that there's a darkness inside of him, like the Dark Knight. There's a darkness inside of him that is the one that is actually on the front lines of facing that darkness within the culture. But then there's a very polished, rich person that has to maintain a certain rapport. And I think it's an example of that yin and yang inside of us. There's this desire to be palatable and pretty, but there's this fucking rage inside of us to go fucking take care of business. And we have that conflict. So to manifest that Batman quest inside of you every day, I think it all comes down to, and this is not like a drop the mic statement, but it's, for me, I only say this personally, when I look at certainty, I'm certain that I've spent the bulk of 32 years wanting to be loved deeply, and never having fully felt that. And I take ownership, not to be a victim, but it's a lot, because I don't trust that the uncertainty that coincides with engaging with love is you are certainly opening your heart to be broken. And I think everyone makes every single decision but based off of their certainty or uncertainty of whether or not their value and their worthiness and their ability to be loved through the decision that they're making. That's what they're weighing out in every fucking decision. Is, I'm certain this is going to be a good idea because I'm going to position myself at work or at home, in whatever context that you make a decision as a human fucking being. It all stems from your capacity to go inward and say, am I worth being loved? And if I don't believe that, and if I believe it's a commodity I have to go earn, then I'm certain I have to go be something I'm not intrinsically, because I don't even know who the fuck I am. I just know that I know that I want to attain love. So, not to end on some hippie shit note, but it's so important to understand that every religious person, everyone that is putting on a bomb and going and killing people, everyone that is calling each other horrific racist names and picket lines, or hating other people for gender issues, it all stems from the fact that everyone's trying to acquire the commodity of love. And I believe that I am positioning myself to be more valuable if I do this thing. And it's all math. And I to say what you said earlier is it's all the quest. the quest of the individual is to not acquire love, it's to create love within and be an expressor of that.
Yeah.
And I believe that's what Martin Luther King, Gandhi, everyone that has done anything beautifully in a monumental way has been a torch carrier for self-love. And whether it's fighting racial issues or inequality, gender issues, those people who really fucking change the world are the ones that are saying, you're worth being loved. And I'm fighting for this aspect of protecting your rights to be loved.
Sure.
But until you create the only certainty of love, which is creating it within yourself, not based off of other circumstances, anchoring that shit and knowing who you are, until you know who you are, you're gonna be certain to have a really sad life, because you're gonna try to acquire love out here. And that's what all of religions are offering, is if you do life a certain way, you'll be certain you're going to be in a pretty rad place.
Yeah.
You know, having tickle fights with unicorns. You know what I mean? It's essentially what they're trying to synthetically offer you. And they're like, fuck yeah. Okay, so all I got to do is be racist, homophobic, and do that really good and I'm going to be with God. Cool. You know, it's so, not to be the hippie, but it's like I 100% believe from my own life lived that until you understand who you are and how to love that, not conditioned, and own that, and that's a big part of why we're selfishly doing what we do.
Little dudes there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, we're good. No, I get what you're saying, dude, because like if you walk into a church, right, and I feel like there's two places to go. You could walk into a church and be this person just seeking certainty, right, that needs it in this way like you're talking about, where it could become such an unhealthy thing. Or you could go sit in church as a person of faith, like we're talking about, and you can get something from it, because you realize that like whatever's being said or done, there's truth in it, there's a seeking in it. It doesn't matter which church or religious place you go to, because you could just be there and be like, wow, okay, that's speaking to me on some level, right? And it's different because it's all about you and what you're geared towards. Are you going to that church service based on looking for that certainty, that spiritual security, whatever it is? Because if you are, you're gonna find it. It's just you're at the mercy of whatever building you walk into, and no one really who wants to be like that. You don't want to be like that. So I feel like to get to that person of faith, that person that's unknowingly seeking, hoping, and hoping in the thing like you're talking about, that love is something that is real, that is something that self-love is something that we're all after, that's the important thing. And I think that it's something we really need to wake up to, you know, because otherwise we're really at the mercy of whatever God or the universe throws into our lives, whether it be at a gang or whatever's happened, you know, if we were abused and whatever got us out of that suffering that we were in. And we don't really want to be like that, you know? I feel like this balance of uncertainty and certainty, where we want to figure out how to be the whole us, so that we can do that thing that actually matters. Because otherwise it's all for nothing. You're thinking, you know, you're there with that picket sign thinking you're doing God's work. In reality, you're doing some really, really harmful stuff. So I don't know, man. It's something where I'm glad that we can talk about it this way and just be so free to just talk about it unknowingly, because I know for me it's been a long journey to even get to this point of just sitting here being okay to just be like
accepting uncertainty.
Accepting uncertainty, accepting you know, certainty being such a quest, and really just honing in on that focus of like, you know, how do I live this life to the best of my ability? So
exactly. Yeah, man. I think that's what it is. It's how to find a place of being so comfortable with being uncomfortable, with being certain that we'll never be certain. So how do I learn to love myself enough to be at a place of I'm certain I never want to be certain. And that's the compass.
That's it.
You know.
That's it. Well, dude, you got some artwork? I wanna show it off. Do you have it with you or no?
Oh yeah. So, yeah, can you see it?
Yep.
Okay, so
Ah, dude, that is fantastic. Was he drinking coffee? Was that hot chocolate?
it's tea. So
Oh, there's the tea.
this is the lactose intolerant astronaut
Mm-hmm.
who is sipping on free certain tea. So obviously the symbolism is like the church and organized religion. They offer this free commodity,
Mm.
but the cost of that is they want to create an environment that's so warm and fuzzy. It's like being on a beach and just absorbing the rays of the sun. So that's kind of he's literally, you know, in the buff mood and absorbing all the sun's rays, and he's literally as red as a cherry because he's been fried. So basically, it's symbolism of if you get to a place of apathy and comfort, and you're certain you know what you know what you know, it creates nothingness and complete apathy of the muscles Tony Robbins was talking about, building that muscle of uncertainty. So basically, it's like there's this big neon, light bulb sign saying, "Welcome to Sir Tans a lot." You're certain to tan whether you're a sir or a ma'am. So it's kind of that. It's like non-gender specific. If you're a human being, if you want to hold on to certainty, you can be guaranteed that you're gonna fry and be toast in your soul. And what's so funny is like you're not even gonna know it. You'll be sipping on it, and your life is gonna be erased. So that's where we're at.
Dude, that's great.
And as always, if anything we said provoked you to any degree, please contact us, and we will give you this original art. And Ryan and I would love to write something back to you and just expression of gratitude. And as always, we're only here to create and give love, and we're not here to take anything. And I believe that's how all the change we need to see is manifested.
Mm-hmm. That's it, man.
Yeah.
Well, Jordan, awesome once again, dude.
Yeah.
So we'll be back next week with something, huh?
Yeah.
All right, man.
It's going to get weird.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks.